guys, I'm Adrian and welcome to my review of Suicide Squad. So going into this movie, I've been hearing incredibly bad things about the movie the entire week. Friends from work said they saw it at an early screening and they all agreed that it was atrocious, that it was terrible, that it was a really bad movie. Like each review that I read would say it's with even more vitriolic hate or passionate that the next one would say like, oh, this is a steaming pile of crap, this is a terrible movie, like we couldn't believe it could be even worse than Batman vs. Superman, what is DC doing, this is absolutely horrible, like just really, really bad stuff. So I was expecting absolute crap. I was expecting the worst film I have ever seen. I was expecting a movie as bad as Fantastic Four, the one that came out, I think, like last year that Fox made the reboot. Because that really, truly was a very bad movie. So I just saw it earlier today, and it really is not that bad, but it could have been much better. But it's not a steaming pile of crap like everyone would have you believe. So before I go into the review, I'm going to give a little bit of backstory on the production of the movie because I think it's very relevant to the problems that the movie has. A while ago, the head of Warner Brothers, the CEO of Warner Brothers, Kevin Sujihara, I believe his name is, he said, he announced all these release dates for the movies, and he said, like, these are the dates that they're going to come out, and we're not moving them for anything, right? So then they said, well, Suicide Squad is going to be needing a little bit more time, but they didn't want to push the budget or the schedule at all. So that's why they decided that's why they bring in directors that typically haven't directed a whole bunch of huge tentpole movies, because they like to bring in directors that don't have that much experience because A, they're not going to be as expensive, and B, they'll actually agree to make the movie with such a reduced timeline. So they bring in David Ayer, who has made successful films before, like Fury, and they think he's going to be a great match. And the thing is that they give him, and this is pretty crazy, guys. They give him 6 weeks to write the movie from beginning to end. The entirety of the script was written in 6 weeks. And I don't know if any of you guys have tried to write a script, but it takes a lot longer than 6 weeks to write a script, let alone like a good one. So that's all he had for prep time. As soon as the 6 weeks were over, bam, let's start shooting this movie. So he does it, they shoot the movie, and then Batman vs. Superman comes out. And then that throws everything into disarray, right? Like they went and they appointed like these new heads, like Zack Snyder's not the head anymore, Jeff Johns is, and this other guy, I forget his name. And the thing is that now, according to the report by The Hollywood Reporter, this is where I'm pulling all this stuff, because Hollywood Reporter took out a report a couple days ago. And according to the report, Kevin Sujihara was, quote-unquote, very pissed about the damage that Batman vs. Superman had done to the brand. So then he ordered that Suicide Squad cannot be as dark as Batman vs. Superman. Now, this would have been all fine and dandy, but the problem was that they had already shot the movie that they wrote, right? And he had written another dark take on the material. Like, it wasn't a light-hearted romp that, like, Guardians of the Galaxy was or something like that. But they wanted that Guardians of the Galaxy movie because that trailer that they took out, that was just this really fun, jovial journey into the lives of these supervillains turned anti-hero kind of thing that they had going in the trailers with the pop songs and the snappy cuts and the snappy little zingers and all of that stuff. Like, audiences really responded to that. So then they decided, well, you know what we're going to do? We're going to have the guys who cut the trailer cut the movie as well. So in other words, they had 2 concurrent cuts of the movie going on at the same time. One by David Ayer and his editor, and one by the editors who cut the trailer. And they also brought in a couple of other editors, and then reportedly, like, the original editor of the movie left, and then another guy came in and filled the spot. Like, there was a lot of drama with the editing. So they screen the movie, parts of the movie, to the audience, and it turns out that the audience likes the more upbeat version done by the trailer people rather than Ayer's version. So then they were like, well, we need to combine these 2 versions, obviously. But they don't have enough material to make that lighthearted romp movie, so they have to go back and do a bunch of reshoots, and then that's why you heard probably a couple months back, like, oh, they're going into these really expensive reshoots to punch up the humor of the movie, and that really was what they were doing. They were trying to make it more like the movie that they promised in the trailers. So they punch up the movie with the extra scenes, and they finally deliver the movie, and of course, the critics, well, they just devoured it. Right? They just absolutely hated everything that had to do with the movie. But let's go into whether or not it was that bad of a movie. So I'm gonna have two parts to this review. The first part that you're listening to right now is going to be the spoiler-less part. There are no spoilers, and then I'm going to deal with the spoilers, like going into the actual uh, beats of the movie in case you've already seen it and you want to go into a more deep analysis of it. All right, so Harley Quinn, I think, is really great. She really just nails the character, like her expressions, her mannerisms, the way she carries herself, the way she handles that outfit. Like, she just completely inhabits the character. And I mean, Tara Strong does a really great job in the video games, but I think that Margot Robbie brings a lot of what that voice actress did into this performance. Like, her accent is not as grating as Tara Strong's is in the game and in the animated series, but I feel like she makes her very relatable. She makes her very funny, very fun to watch, and there are really cool Easter eggs of with her character, which I won't say here right now, but they're really cool Easter eggs peppered throughout the film with her. Deadshot. So, Deadshot, I really did not know much about this character going into the film. And I feel like they've kind of warped him into being just your generic Will Smith, aw hell nah character. Like, he didn't really do anything with the role that he hasn't done with his countless other hero roles before. I think they've made him a little too heroic in a sense. Like, yeah, he's a hitman, but he has a heart of gold, and he really is not a bad person at all. Like, there's no darkness to him. He just happens to kill people, but he's a really nice guy other than that. And I think the whole daughter thing, because that's like, he has a daughter and he loves her very much, and I feel like it was a bit overused in the film. And Amanda Waller, the head honcho that brings a whole Task Force X together, I think she did great. Viola Davis is a fantastic actress, and she nailed the role. I mean, I have seen her in the animated movies. Like, she's a hard ass. Like, nobody messes with her. And I feel that she brought all of that into her performance. Enchantress, I feel Cara Delevingne did a fine job. She plays the role the way it was written. I've read a lot of criticism, like said, like, oh man, she deserves a Razzie, but there really was one way to do that role, the way that they wrote it for her, and I think she did it exactly the way they wrote it. No fault lies on her. Like, it really lies in the writing, if you really want to fault anybody for that character. El Diablo, I feel, was really the most interesting of the bunch of the supervillains in this. I mean, excluding Margot Robbie with Harley Quinn, and she's the most popular. But El Diablo, I feel like he has a really tragic backstory once you find out what it is, and more on him in the spoiler section later, but I really enjoyed his part in the movie. And Joker's okay. I just feel like we never really got to see him to make a full judgment on his character. Again, like, I really don't want to go into too much with him just so you can make up your own mind, but there's just very little of him in the movie, and I will discuss him more in the spoiler part. So the movie itself is very clearly divided into two parts. Like, the first part is assembling the team, and the second part is the mission itself. And the assembling has plenty of parts that are really fun to watch. This is where I feel like the movie really shines and is actually like a really enjoyable ride. But once we get to the meat of the story, like the actual mission they go on to, there's just really isn't much there because the mission is very by the numbers. It just did not, there wasn't enough material there to sustain a 2-hour movie because it's a very simple, straightforward story with hardly any complications along the way. So we take a lot of time assembling the team, but the thing is that then they have a really unclear goal which gets murkier, and then the stakes aren't there. Like, I know I said it was a very straightforward story, but in terms of what their goals are and how they're going about doing it, it's just not very clear. And you never really feel like they needed this band of supervillains to go take out this threat, since in the end they're really just taking out a bunch of mindless zombies. Like, they call them something else, but they're just really just amount to very like ugly looking zombie black creature things, like swamp things. Oh yes, there is a final battle, which really isn't much of a fight sequence. I mean, if you've seen my other content in this channel, I specialize in doing fight scene breakdowns, and I don't feel I'm going to be doing any of this film because there really weren't that many, but I do appreciate the fact that there was a final battle with the final boss of this movie. I'm not going to say what it is or what they're fighting, but they do actually all come together to try to take the villain out, so I appreciated that. Because other movies, even Marvel is guilty of sometimes doing this, where they just spend all the time dealing with the putties. Like in Avengers 1, they dealt with all the putties, which were the minions from space, right? And then the battle with Loki is just Hulk sliming him around, and that's the end of the fight. Or in Ultron, they spend all the time dealing with all his clones, and then the battle with actual Ultron is just laser him, and then there's no fight, and that's it. So I did appreciate the fact that we actually got a final battle, just like we got a final battle in Batman versus Superman. So, before going into the details of why parts worked or why they didn't work, I'd say that if you're a fan of the DC universe, if you're a fan of Batman and his bad guys and of what they're doing so far with the movies, I'd say give it a shot. Try seeing it in a matinee, if possible, just in case it's just not your kind of movie. That way you don't feel like you haven't wasted your money. But if you're going in for like a really fun action comedy, I would say don't go see it because it's really not that much of a comedy. There are a couple of jokes, but it's not as they would make you believe it is in the trailer. It is definitely not Guardians of the Galaxy. It is not that movie, even though they tried their best, but it's not that movie. So I would say if you're going in to see that, I would say you could skip it. You're going to be very disappointed. All right, so now we're going to go into the spoilerific part of the review. This is, once again, your warning. If you want no specific details of the movie, stop watching right now. You could come back later once you've watched it. So let's begin. So as you guys may have noticed, I have become quite a big fan of this Batman that was introduced in Batman vs. Superman. I feel like his design is really cool. I feel that Ben Affleck's performance is awesome. I feel that his gadgets are awesome. I love the design of the Batmobile. Like everything about this Batman, it just fascinates me. He is such a cool incarnation of the character, and I can't wait to see more of him. So it was really cool to see him in this movie. He is in the actual movie for less than 2 minutes, I would say, but all his stuff was really cool. I mean, in that scene where Deadshot is walking along with his daughter, and then Batman swoops in and like takes him in and like punches him and stuff like that. That's really cool to see those interactions. Or when he goes and takes out Harley Quinn as well. Like, that was really fun. And now let's go into, like, obviously the Harley Quinn. I think all the stuff with Harley Quinn's backstory and how she got infatuated with Joker, all of that is absolutely fascinating and is really well done. And I really enjoyed it. But I feel like putting in a bullet point that she was involved in the murder of Robin, like, that is a huge revelation here, because that puts like an extraordinary amount of hatred that Batman would have towards her. And I feel like that was a huge missed opportunity, and I feel like that would have been a really cool movie. And actually, a lot of the time that I was watching this flashback sequence where, Joker's with Harley and Joker's with Harley in the nightclub, and then Batman swoops in to try to take him out. Like, I feel like that would have been a really cool movie. Like, if we could have gotten to know them, gotten to know him, gotten maybe to know Robin, see the murder of Robin, see what I think is the reason why he has all those grills on his teeth is because Batman probably punched his teeth out once he found out what he did to Robin. Like, I feel like there's a really great story to tell there, and I rather would have seen that story than the story that we got with Suicide Squad, but oh well, maybe in the future. I mean, I doubt it, because I would be like backtracking now at this point since they've moved so far past that. But regardless, I would have loved to have seen that movie. I feel like the movie has way too many introductions. We didn't need a Boomerang introduction since his character is really absolutely useless. I mean, the only thing his like characters that's very character specific to him is when he throws a boomerang and it acts like a drone. That's basically it. Everything else, like, any other guy with a knife could have done what he did. There was nothing special about his character. He could have easily gotten killed, just like Slipknot did in like 3 minutes. God, I don't even know why they put him in there. It was so stupid. The Flash cameo was, I guess, fun. Although it was a little pointless. I don't even know why they even bothered including him. Deadshot shooting stuff was fun the first time, but then we see him shoot stuff again and again. Like, I feel like he just got a lot of, like, let's test your skills, Deadshot. Like, the one that he does in the prison. Like, we already know he's really great. Like, we don't need to see him be really great again if he's about to be really great during the actual shootout in the first big action sequence of the movie. Enchantress, as a villain, didn't really bother me. Her plan was generic, but she played the part fine, just like I mentioned. She's a very powerful adversary, and I kind of like that she has like these amazing cosmic powers, and she's very visually very cool, but I feel like she did have a very lame death, where like, oh, Harley Quinn duped her, and then like, bam, takes her heart out, and then they just throw a bomb at her big spell, and the bomb takes out the spell. I mean, I guess there really was no other way to take her out since most of the people on that team didn't really have any superpowers except Diablo. So I guess they had to like do some sort of thing where they could feasibly take her out without Superman, without Wonder Woman, without Batman. So yeah, but still, it was a very lame death. But I feel like the criticisms that Cara Delevingne has gotten that her performance was wooden or she deserves a Razzie or any of that, I feel like it's very unwarranted. She did fine when she was playing that part. Like the whole, I mean, most of the time she's possessed and we hear her voice through a filter, so it may or may not even be her all the time. But it was fine. She was just like the Rita Repulsa, I'm gonna conquer the world sort of thing. Like that's what the character she was given, and that's the character she played. So I don't feel like we should fault her for being a terrible actress or anything like that. That's exactly what the part was written for. There really was nothing else she could do with it. So I have said this a couple times already, but as a whole, there's just not enough material in here for a full movie because like we assemble the squad, we throw them on the mission to retrieve K1 or whatever they called it in the movie. Then it turns out that that was Amanda Waller who happened to be in the hot zone. Then the mission changes to kill the Enchantress, which personally I thought was the mission all along, but then I realized, oh, we as an audience know that's the mission, but they as the characters don't know that their mission is to go kill Enchantress. They think they just go have to rescue some important asset, which happened to be Waller. So I don't know. I think that was very muddled. And then what literally happens in the story is that they arrive, they kill people, they get Waller, they get a drink, then they immediately kill Enchantress. Like there are no plot twists, there are no subplots, there's no revelations. Everything is exactly the way it was set up. And usually in a movie you don't get that. Usually in a movie you get the simple setup of like go retrieve the MacGuffin, go get this thing, and then there's complications, and then other things happen. There's revelations, there's twists, there's other things that come into play. Like things get more complicated. That's what the movie is. Like, I mean, cartoons usually stick with just like a very simple plot because you have to resolve it in 20 minutes. But when you have 2 hours to play with, like you can get more in depth. You can have more stuff happen to your characters. Not what we got here. Like there just wasn't enough. It was such a straightforward mission. And Joker, now that I could talk about him freely since you guys have seen the movie, I feel like he was very much an afterthought. Like he just tries to get Quinn, he fails, and then he succeeds at the end. And I feel that his performance could be an interesting take on the Joker. Like he's trying to play him like some sort of deranged animal kind of guy with making all sorts of sounds. But the thing is, with him, we would get like 3 to 5 lines of dialogue per scene with him. Like it would be like Joker arrives, he smiles, he says 2 or 3 lines very slowly, and then the scene ends. Like we don't really get to know him. Like, for example, like that awesome scene in The Dark Knight where Joker's talking to Batman and we just see this extended monologue of the Joker. Like, that's when you get to know the character, when you see how twisted it is, when you see what his train of thought is. We never got that here. All we got was him just saying things in a really weird manner and laughing in a really weird manner. There wasn't enough to judge his performance. I feel like there's still a lot left to see of what he can do with the character. So I wouldn't be eager to pass judgment and say, like, oh, he was a terrible Joker. He was a great Joker. Because there just wasn't enough. There was so little of him in the movie. We can't judge it yet. The action itself, I was a little disappointed with this because I feel like although there were some cool action beats, as a whole, it was very dark and very disorienting, especially that first big action sequence that they have when they start killing all the zombies. Like there was just so many characters and they all kind of look the same when it's very dark. You just see the quick slashes and the zombie guys explode. And there really just wasn't a lot of variety. And if you compare this, because it's like a putty scene, you know, like in Power Rangers when they go and fight the putties, it's basically another putty battle. But you compare the putty battles seen in the Marvel movies and compare it to this one, and you feel like they have a better handle on it. Not only is it brighter, which I'm not saying it has to be during the day, but the thing is that there's a lot of contrast between what the aliens look like and what our heroes look like. Captain America is bright blue and white. Like Thor has that big flourishing long cape. Like there's enough to distinguish what is going on so you don't feel lost. And here everything was dark. I mean, even in the warehouse fight sequence from Batman vs. Superman, you know, probably the best scene in that entire movie, Like you have, yes, there everyone's in black, but at least their surroundings are, well, they're like brown, right? So at least you have a little bit of contrast there in the way they lit it and the way that you're focused on one character taking out a bunch of guys. It's focused and it's comprehensible and it's entertaining. And here, like, I feel like since there were just so many characters fighting all the time, so many quick cuts, and it was a lot of shooting, it's just, it all gets lost. It all becomes visually the same. You don't really get a lot. Even her, like, Harley Quinn's like little elevator battle was just so constrained that you really couldn't see a lot. But you can have a good elevator battle, like in Winter Soldier, where he just takes out all the guys. Like, that's really cool. It is possible. But I feel like this elevator battle with Harley Quinn, there's just so many cuts, and it was just shot in a way that it really wasn't very visually interesting. It was just so jarring and cut quickly, and it was just not that great. I feel by far the most the coolest villain that they had in this team was Diablo. I feel like there's a lot to explore with this character. He has like the super tragic backstory like Kratos does in God of War, where he's directly responsible for the deaths of his family. Like that makes him very compelling, and it makes him very interesting. And like I love the shout outs that what he shouts to the guy in Spanish. He basically insults him twice with these very lines that are like steeped in just the Mexican culture of the lines that he tells him. The two are is ahora sí cabrón, I think is what he says, and I think they translate it to "it's on, bitch." But the ahora sí cabrón doesn't really translate that well to the "it's on." I guess the ahora sí it's on, yes, but the bitch part, I feel like that was kind of mistranslated a little bit because cabrón is just it can be a word used both to mean something that he's like a badass, or it can be at the same time used like you're an asshole kind of thing. Like I think asshole would have probably been better, but I guess they wanted to write bitch instead of asshole, probably because of the rating. And then, God, what does he tell him at the end when he takes him out? Ahora, sí, he says like, "Ya te chingaste, güey." So that was awesome because that, again, that's steeped into really Mexican Spanish. So what that means, chingaste, again, that's kind of like the equivalent of fuck in English, where you can use that word to mean a whole bunch of different things. It's the same thing with chingar. And the way part, that's like the colloquial way to say man, although that's also kind of insulting in Spanish too, depending on how you use it. So again, like I feel like those were two really well chosen lines and really well said. And his design when he turns into his ultimate form was awesome. Like I really liked all that part, and I felt awful that he was offed, that he sacrificed himself, and that, I mean, I guess it was a very noble action on his part, but man, I really would have liked to have seen more with him. That was really cool. So let's get back to that drink that I mentioned in the plot synopsis. I think that by far that is the weakest part of the movie. Like, I get why they did it, but there's so many better ways to do something like that. What they're doing is that was the scene that happens after you have a scene when you're writing your script where it's called the all is lost moment. So this comes usually during the middle of Act 2, right before you get to Act 3, when it looks like when everything is going wrong for your hero, when he is captured, when they kill someone very close to him, when something is taken away from him, when the guy that was supposed to be working with him betrays him, like everything is lost. It looks like there's no way he's gonna make it out alive. There's no way he's gonna accomplish his goal, and he riles himself up again, and he goes and he sets out to do it. So that's why they have this moment. But the all is lost moment is just brought on upon because they didn't hear the full story of the Enchantress. And then that somehow is like, nah, man, that's like too much. Even though we've been killing these supernatural beings, possessed beings, all throughout the movie, but the fact that we're gonna deal with the person that created these supernatural beings, that's too much. I'm not gonna be involved in this mission at all anymore. Like, what? Okay, so anyway, so we're back in this bar scene, and it was really padded, really long. It's cool that we got to learn about Diablo's backstory, but it's like, whenever you get to a point in a movie where you literally stop the plot to have your characters bond. That's really bad. Like, it reminds me of Die Hard 5, where they just, I don't know if you've seen this movie, but it's a really terrible film. And at one point, they jump out of a building, I think, and then they land. And then John McClane literally says, if you'd like, we could just go back home and just put an end to this and just stop this. And they really could have. They really could have walked back home and nothing would have happened. And I feel like that's kind of the moment where they wrote into this movie, where they just decide to stop the plot, to go bond a little bit, to just have a couple drinks and let Enchantress keep casting her spell that takes forever and ever, and we're just gonna sit here and bond. It's just, you should never have a moment in your movie where your characters could just walk out of the movie, which is what they created with this bar scene. Another thing that was kind of troubling is why Harley Quinn came back to the team once she was rescued by Joker and dumped off in the building. I mean, there was really no reason for her to come back except I missed you guys or whatever, but she didn't really even have enough time to form a huge connection with them. So I don't know what her goal was. She could have bolted, she could have left. She would have gotten a way better deal than what she ended up getting at the end of 10 years off your sentence and Frappuccino machine. So yeah, that was a little puzzling to me. And I know that so far throughout this whole review, I'm being very critical. That's what I tend to be. I tend to be very critical with the things that's why I gave an hour-long review for Metal Gear Solid 5. But I want to be clear here that I don't think it was garbage. I have been mentioning these things peppered throughout the review, but just in case you're wondering, why is this, you've just been harping on this movie this whole time. I feel it had a really cool first half of the movie where they're assembling the team. I feel like all that was really well done. I really liked those backstories. Perhaps there was too many, but I really enjoyed them, especially the stuff with Harley Quinn and Joker. Really great performances across the board. Everyone did a fine job in that department. Some really great shots with Enchantress. I feel she was a very visually interesting character. That shot where she puts her hand on the table and then the other black hand envelops it and it turns around, that's really cool imagery. I'm definitely not going to forget that shot. That is very, very well done. It's like something out of a horror movie. Very cool. And it moved along at a very, very brisk pace. It was generally entertaining. The quips were pretty good, even though I just feel like a lot of them were spoiled by the trailers, which does lend credence to the theory of for that first trailer, they just took every joke in the movie and put it in there and made it seem like that was going to be the whole movie. Because there really weren't that many jokes, but the ones that were there, they were quite good. They were good zingers. It was nice to see some levity. Like I said, it moves at a pretty brisk pace, excluding the bar scene. The bar scene's the equivalent of Wonder Woman checking your emails. Let's stop the plot so we can go do this extraneous stuff instead. And Batman vs. Superman is, let's stop the plot so we can see some trailers, and here, let's stop the plot so they can have a little bonding moment and maybe toss a couple zingers. But, so, basically what keeps holding this movie back, all these criticisms stem from the stakes. The stakes were just not high enough, and those stakes keep it from being a great movie. There really is no overarching reason of why they need to be there. Why do we need the Suicide Squad? In the end, yes, they were dealing with the Enchantress, which is their metahuman, like they like to call them. There's superpowered being there, so they feel like they needed to send in these people. But in the end, they ended up doing stuff that any soldier could have done. Except the Diablo part, they could have just gotten Diablo and done everything. But when Harley Quinn goes and slashes her and then gets the heart out and then they throw a bomb and they shoot the bomb, any other guy could have done that. Any soldier could have done that. So it wasn't very clear they needed the Suicide Squad for this. And then the changing mission parameters, the fact that they weren't building towards something, the villain sprung out of nowhere and not for a very strong reason, they used to worship us. Now they worship machines, so I'm going to destroy them. Very Apocalypse from X-Men Apocalypse, which is... it's exactly what you don't want in your villain. Just really generic take over the world sort of stuff. And also going into that whole thing of why send the Suicide Squad, another problem that I think the movie had was that the reason why she conceived of the Suicide Squad, right, is that they have complete deniability, right? If something goes wrong, we just blame them. We have nothing to do with it. And they can use them for the most covert ops necessary, right? But then the mission that they actually send them in to do is actually, pretty honorable, pretty heroic. They're going and they're trying to save the city from the giant light beam that's going to destroy them all or whatever. Like, it didn't seem to me like that is something that you need a covert group of super criminals to do. You could have done that with real soldiers. You didn't need to hide any part of that mission. Like, if they had to go steal something from a government facility in order to do something else, then yeah, you don't want to say your soldiers are stealing stuff, right? So that's why you would send in this covert operation unit. But I feel like it was such a straightforward and heroic mission, there really is no reason why they couldn't just send a normal squad of people. Like, there was nothing Black Ops about this. And again, when I started thinking about it a little more, I was like, so okay, so they inject everybody else with these bombs that can go off whenever they deem necessary, but they don't inject it on the Enchantress. They don't inject it on the most powerful metahuman that they have. Like, they just assume she's gonna play by the rules. As soon as they sent her in there, they should have injected her with a little bomb, and then you take care of it, and then you don't even need to send in the Suicide Squad to do anything because you already took her out. So yeah, they definitely should have used that little bomb into the Enchantress. So, and again, all these problems that I've been mentioning so far, all these stakes problems, all these problems with the plot and stuff like that, it all goes back to what I mentioned in the beginning, to that 6 weeks problem. Because this is what you get when you have 6 weeks to write a whole movie. You get a paper-thin plot with no twists or depth because you just don't have the time to develop it. Because you're rushing through it and you're just trying to hit your plot points. You're trying to get to the final battle, but you don't really know like what needs to be in between there because there's just not enough material. And you have hardly any characterization because you have so many characters nobody's ever heard of, and you have to introduce them and you have to somehow develop them, but it's just 6 weeks. I mean, come on, guys, 6 weeks. That was just no time at all, and I feel like a lot of these problems could have been dealt with had they given them maybe 6 weeks more. And as far as the editing, I feel like the first half of the movie was edited more by the trailer guys, and then once they get into the mission, that was more of Ayer's cut, because the first half, that's when we see like every single pop song that they put into the trailer is stuffed into those scenes. I mean, sometimes it gets a little like annoying of how you change scene, you change music, and sometimes they play really loudly and through the scene too. I mean, Shady's back, Eminem to play in the suiting up because they are literally back in action. Like, I feel like it was very on the nose when they decided to play the songs in terms of the lyrics corresponding to what's happening with the stuff. And the second half, like, all the pop song stuff virtually disappears. Like, we go into a straightforward movie score, and then it doesn't come back until the end when we hear the famous song from the trailer. Oh yeah, and I almost forgot to mention, so the Easter egg that I mentioned that they have with Harley Quinn is that you get to see her in her original costume from the animated series, so I thought that was a really cool touch. So, in conclusion, I feel like this is a movie that, even though I have been pointing out throughout these past couple minutes just all the problems that it has, it's still a functionally, technically well-made film. Like, you have good performances, you do have an entertaining bits with the backstories, you have a final battle, you've got action scenes that may not be the best action scenes, but they're there. It is a good, quote-unquote, good movie, but it's not a great superhero movie. It is not like on the level of the stuff that Marvel has done, like Captain America Civil War, or on the level of like Spider-Man 2, something like a really memorable comic book movie. This is not what it is, and I feel that a lot of the problems come from that background that I mentioned, like writing a movie in 6 weeks, and the fact that there was 2 competing cuts going on at the same time and trying to turn the movie into something that it was never meant to be. And again, going back to the 6 weeks thing, you didn't have enough material to cover a whole movie. There was other interesting stories to be told that you just rushed through in the origin stories to get to your generic story of rescuing someone and then taking out some big light that shot up into the sky. But again, I don't feel it deserves all the hatred that is delivered towards it. Like, I mean, I've seen some reviews that give it 0 stars. It is not a 0-star movie. Fantastic Four, that is a 0-star movie. That went nowhere, and that turned into a complete turd of a movie because it was there's a movie that's really dark, really depressing. They don't go anywhere. It just takes place in a bunch of offices. I guess I'm going too much of a review of Fantastic Four. But that's a really bad movie. It is nowhere near as bad as that movie. It's okay. It's an okay movie, and it just remains to be seen. What is going to be the audience feedback to their friends? Like, are they going to tell their friends, "Oh, it's a piece of crap, you should avoid it," or you should go see it, it's really fun? Because this word of mouth, this is really going to determine how well Suicide Squad does, because the word of mouth for Batman vs. Superman was horrible. That's why it had that huge drop in the following weeks after its huge record-breaking opening. It just didn't really make that much money. And the interesting thing here is that, according to reports, Suicide Squad needs to make between $750 to $800 million to break even. I'm not even saying make a profit. Break even. That's how much this movie costs to make and to market, and the reshoots and all the stuff that they invested into the movie. So it's really facing a very steep uphill battle. And it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with this movie and how it affects the rest of the DC universe. I mean, personally, the best thing I think that could come out of this is that if they are very worried that their universe is gonna tank because it's just not making enough money, we may get to see the solo Batman movie sooner. Because I feel like having this release date that is so far off into the future whenever Ben Affleck feels like making the movie is just, I feel it's a mistake. I feel people want to see that movie already. He's by far the coolest part of these movies and the thing that people were most interested in Batman vs. Superman, and yet we're going to be like fiddling around with Aquaman and Flash, and Wonder Woman looks like it's going to be interesting because we've never had a Wonder Woman movie before, but like we should get to Batman as quickly as possible. So yeah, maybe they'll reshuffle the schedule a little bit, just like what happened with Marvel when they got Spider-Man, and they decided to reshuffle the schedule and pump out the Spider-Man movie beforehand rather than waiting for a couple years. Like, I feel like that Batman movie needs to come out as quickly as humanly possible, just to get everything, just to give the people the story that they want. Like those awesome moments, like you have a really cool Harley Quinn and a Joker that could go somewhere, and now you have like this Deadshot character who's like morally ambiguous. I mean, he's essentially more of a hero than anyone else in the movie, but like it's cool. Like they've created cool interpretations of Batman villains that I would love to see Batman fully take on, as opposed to just pop in for a cameo and then see the bad guys take out a bunch of faceless zombies. But anyway, I think you guys have heard me talk long enough. I would love to hear your thoughts on the film. What did you think of it? What do you think could have been better? Like, what movies you would like to see out of the DC universe? Like, anything and everything to do with this movie, please leave me your thoughts in the comments below. I do read every single one of them, and I try to reply to as many of them because I really appreciate your comments, your feedback, and yeah, let me know what you guys think. Make sure to subscribe. I take out a bunch of fight scene breakdowns, but I'm also going to be doing more movie stuff and more other stuff, like, like this review. I'm going to be doing an unboxing soon, and I just did a short skit where I dress up as Solid Snake and I go on a date with Samus. Like, there's a bunch of live action Metal Gear stuff too on the channel. So yeah, subscribe if you get the chance, and you can follow me on my Twitter at Godzillarex. My Facebook is also Godzillarex. My Instagram is Godzillarex. So if you type Godzillarex, you will find me. Thanks so much for watching. See you guys next time.